Hello, tradeologists. Well, I wanted to introduce you to a very powerful technique that has been a staple trading technique of professional floor traders on the exchanges across the world. This is called Gamma Scalping. I've heard people call it Gamma Trading, but the idea of trading, day trading, without the risk normally associated with day trading is what this particular strategy is all about. First, I want to emphasize two things. First, we're going to be talking about the sale of stock and the purchase of stock, sometimes in large quantities. But I really don't want you to be concerned about that just yet, because I think it's important for you to understand how the position kind of fits together, how the strategy actually works out to make a profit for you. And this is a potentially difficult concept to grasp, but as we go along over the next 20 days, 20 videos that we're going to be putting together, it's actually over a 20-day period, that you'll be able to understand how gamma scalping is such a powerful, extremely powerful method for trading just about any type of stock or market. The idea behind gamma scalping is really to take advantage of and lock in profits as prices fluctuate. And it's designed to capture as many of those movements as possible as the stock goes up and down, and really the idea here is the opposite of what we're doing with theta, positive theta trades. You know, in positive theta trades, we're trying to capture as much theta as we possibly can. We're trying to capture that time decay of the options that we've sold over time to expiration. In most cases, you are going to be you only want to be able to put these positions on when you're gamma positive. So as you know, when you're gamma positive, your theta will be negative. And if you're theta positive, your gamma will be negative. And if you're theta negative, your gamma will be positive. These are trades that you're going to do only when gamma is positive. In other words, you want gamma to affect delta. Gamma, remember, is the rate of change of the delta. And you can consider this type of strategy, this particular type of strategy, as a delta neutral trading strategy, because what we're trying to do is continually keep our deltas in a neutral position. The very core of this trading strategy is the straddle or strangle position. Let's go over to our trade tab here for a second, and we're just going to put in the IWM, which is the Russell 2000 Index Fund, and we want to take the nearest month's options. We have August up, we have September, we have November, January, February, and January of 2010. But if you recall from your study of the Greeks, gamma becomes more sensitive and it becomes larger the closer you get to the money, and also the closer you get to expiration. And what we want really to happen is to have gamma to become we want gamma to be as much as possible in these trades, affecting the delta of our position. So the basic strategy is to purchase a straddle on any stock or any stock position or ETF. The criteria to make this work is basically you want a stock or an ETF that is going to move a lot. In our other trades, in positive theta trades, we don't want the stock to move. We want it to stay in one place in order for us to capture the positive theta, the time decay of that option. In this case, what we want to be able to do is have the stock move as much as possible so that we can ideally trade the stock as it changes the delta of our straddle position. And that is an important distinction because we want it to move as much as possible. If possible, we'd like to make 2 or 3 or 4 trades or more a day. That's not always possible, but at least we'd like to make at least 1 or 2 trades a day. And the reason for that is since we are buying a straddle, we have time decay, negative theta, working against us. Let me just show you an example. As you recall, if I bring up my SPY position here, theta will decay. Theta is positive on this position, and that is the rate of decay for this position on a daily basis. So we don't want the price to move too much in this position. We want it to be relatively stable so that we can gather as much profit potential as possible. Our white line is our current expiration. Is our current profit and loss. Our green line is the expiration date. As time moves forward, and if I'll draw your attention down to this date clock down here, if the price remains stable, right now it's at 125.43 on the SPY. If we toggle the date ahead, you'll notice that white line is moving up. Our theta is increasing the closer that we get to our expiration. We are in August of 08 expiration date. So as we get closer to the expiration date, our theta will increase. The amount of profit that we generate based on the theta decay increases. And as long as the price doesn't move too much, we continue to generate a profit from the position until we get to expiration, in which we've captured the maximum profit in this position. Well, contrast that with buying a straddle. Let's buy a straddle on the IWM. I'm going to choose the 71 straddle. It's currently priced at $3.62 as a debit. We can play around with different strike prices. For example, we could go from 71 to 72. We go to 73. We can go down to 70. But we want the straddle that is the cheapest. In other words, we don't want to pay too much for our straddle. Now with this position, with this strategy, we really have to have more than 1 or 2 contracts. I would suggest that you need a minimum of 10 contracts to be truly effective with this strategy. So you're buying a straddle with at least a minimum of 10 contracts. And the reason for that will become apparent as we proceed. So let's go ahead and take this over to our Analyze tab for a second. And I want to show you what happens or what the difference is between this and our theta positive trades. As you can see, the theta is quite negative. In fact, it's a negative 76. That means for each day that you hold this particular trade, you're going to lose $76 out of this position. That's not a good place to be in, really. We'll increase the date again and see how this position differs from the one that I just showed you with the SPY, in which we were theta positive. As we increase the date, you can see that the losses, if the stock does not move, increase at the rate of approximately $79, and in fact the theta itself increases on a daily basis. And if the price doesn't move, the losses mount rather quickly. That is the danger of buying straddles or strangles on any particular stock. Just a little over 10 days or so here, we've already lost $1,405 on the straddle, which cost us $3,600 in margin. So let's see what we can do in order to help not only make a profit, but to counteract the decline of the option premiums and the decay that takes place before expiration. As you can see, our gamma is 182. That's the rate at which the delta will change. Even at the current position, even though we bought the at the money straddle, we currently have a delta of a minus 130. The idea with gamma scalping is to constantly either purchase or sell stock, not options. We want the underlying stock to bring us to a delta neutral position. You're probably feeling a little bit lost at this point, but I would encourage you to keep on with this and try to understand exactly what we're going to be doing. The purchase and sale of stock, both buying it and selling on a regular basis throughout the day, if possible, will help generate and lock in profits that we can get from the stock. All the while we are protected from any losses on our buying and selling activities by our underlying straddle. The only danger in this position is having or selecting a stock or an ETF or index that does not move for an extended period of time. Because as we've seen, if the stock stays relatively stable, we have absolutely no opportunity to buy and sell the underlying security. And that will cause theta to create a larger amount of losses on a daily basis in our position. The goal then is to have the price move enough so that we can trade the stock to offset the decay of the theta. In fact, have it move enough so that we can also generate a profit on top of the theta decay. The reason this gamma scalping methodology, this strategy works, is because the deltas of the position change as the stock moves. For example, if we were to do the gamma scalping on the IWM, we currently have a negative delta. In order for us to get to a delta neutral position, even though we have the current at the money straddle, we would have to purchase stock in order to get to a delta neutral position, and that's the goal. In fact, we'd have to purchase 130 shares of stock to be at a delta neutral position. Let's go back and see exactly what happens. If we purchased 100 shares of stock, we would now bring the position to a relatively neutral delta position by buying the stock. Now, what happens if the stock immediately rallies after we purchase the stock? Well, let's take a look. Let's adjust our price. Let's say it goes up at least $1. Now we are long 195 deltas. Well, in order to get back to a delta neutral position, we would have to sell the 100 shares that we purchased at the price that we bought it at, which was at the time. Let me just check the prices. We purchased it at, and these bid and asks are quite wide. It's actually $7.11, which was the last trade. So let's adjust this to $70.11. That, the $70.11, would generate a profit if the current price was $71.35 of $120, because the difference between the price that we bought it at $70.11 and the current price is $71.35. The price went up, allowing us to generate a profit of $125. At that point, not only did we counteract the $78 in theta decay, but we made a $25 profit on the position. And if we can do this several times a day, you can see that the profits can be generated very, very quickly, as long as the stock continues to move. Okay, now let's take an example in which the stock declines. If our current price is $70.11, as you recall, we were negative 130 deltas. We go ahead and we purchase 100 shares. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, if our delta is a negative 130, don't we need to buy 130 shares to become delta neutral? And that's true. We do have to, we should in fact buy 130 shares to become exactly delta neutral. However, it's more cost effective to buy shares in round lots of 100. It's also easier to be filled. So we're going to continue to use 100 shares or 200 shares or 300 shares or as many shares as we need in order to become delta neutral. So now we've purchased our 100 shares to get relatively close to delta neutral. If we purchase 200 shares, that would make us slightly positive delta. Now, if you believe that there's an imminent chance of the stock moving up, it won't hurt you to be a little bit positive delta. So you can use positive delta as a trading mechanism or as a signal to help you profit even more if you believe the stock is going to move up. Of course, if it moves down, then that's a different story. But you can still be within 50 points of delta or 60 points and still be relatively delta neutral. But we're simply going to buy 100 shares of stock at $70.11, which is the current price. So now we are relatively delta neutral. Now what happens if the price should move down? Let's say it drops $1 to $69. Now we are short 200 deltas. So we know that if we buy stock, it will bring us back to a delta neutral position. So now all we have to do is go back to our trade tab and purchase. And we're always going to use the last trade because we're in after hours and the bid and ask spread really widen out. In order to bring us back to delta neutral position, we're going to have to buy an additional 200 shares of stock. That will bring us back to a relatively neutral delta position at -9. Now you'll notice that even though the stock has moved down, we are now long 300 shares in addition to our straddle. But we are in a delta neutral position. Let's say it moves down another $1. We've had a real sell-off in the market and the price keeps moving down on us. Now we're short another 173 deltas. In order to get delta neutral, we need to go in and purchase another 200 shares of stock. That brings us back to a relatively neutral delta position, slightly long delta of 26. We are now long 500 shares of the IWM ETF. This is not totally realistic, because as we continue to trade, the straddle will also change in price. So now what we need to do is we're currently long 500 shares and slightly long delta. Now, as you know, many times stocks will fluctuate up and down, quite frequently as a matter of fact. So we've just seen a 2-point drop in the IWM, and then it rallies back to 69.50. Not all the way to where we purchased it, but pretty close. Now we are long 261 shares delta. We're long 261 delta. I always think of delta as shares of a stock. Well, we're long 261. In order for us to get back to delta neutral, we need to sell 260 shares of the stock that we're trading. So how can we do that? Well, we can sell 100. We can sell 200. If we sell 200 shares, that will get us fairly close to being delta neutral at 61. The one thing I forgot to do, though, was the last 2 times that we bought stock, the price was actually different. So the last time we bought stock, it was at 68, I believe 51. Or something close to that. So the stock that we bought the last time we needed to get delta neutral, we bought 200 shares at $68. In order to get back to delta neutral, we need to sell those 200 shares that we bought at $68.51 for the current price at $69.51. That gave us a $200 profit. We also have our other shares, and I forgot to change this one too, that we bought at $69.31 or something close to that. So now we still have our 300 shares. We're still long 300 shares at different prices. We sold the stock that we bought the last time for $68.51, and we sold it at $69.51, the current price of the stock. That helped us generate a profit. Not only have we helped with the decay, not only have we generated enough of a profit to counteract the theta decay for that day, but now we've also generated a profit for that day. Let's continue. Let's say we also get another strong rally. We go up to 71.51. Well, at 71.51, we are now long 400 deltas. In order to get to delta neutral, we need to sell 400 shares of stock at 71.51. Well, we bought 200 at 69.31, which we will sell now at a profit of approximately $2 a share. That's a $400 profit. We also have another 100 shares because we're still long 224 deltas. We purchased at $70.11, which was one of our original transactions, that we can now sell for $71.51, generating another $100 in profit. That brings our total profit very close to $500 or $600. Because we've been able to trade based on the delta alone. Now we're still, even after we sold our 500 shares, we're still long 124 deltas. In order for us to be delta neutral, we need to sell 100 shares. That will bring us to a delta of $24.30. At the current price, we are selling at the current price of $71.51. That brings us to a relatively neutral, delta neutral position. If the rally continues and goes up another point to 72.51, now we are long another 197 deltas. In order to bring us back to delta neutral, we need to buy another 200 shares. And we're going to buy those shares at the current price of 72.51. Now we once again are in a delta neutral position. The stock had a pretty good run, but now it's starting to soften a little bit. In fact, it dropped 50 cents today back to 72. Well, we're slightly short delta at 87. If we wanted to be a little bit closer to delta neutral, we could sell 100 shares of stock, which we purchased at 71.51. It doesn't give us a very good profit. So the last 200 shares that we purchased was at 72.51. We could sell those shares and make a $100 profit because the current price is 72.01. And if we sold it at 72.51, that gives us a 50-cent profit or a $100 profit on 200 shares. But we decide to wait to see if we can sell more stock as the stock continues to drop. It's not necessary. We could take the $100 profit if we want, but we're going to wait and see what happens. The stock drops to $71.80. We're now short 122 deltas. Well, once we're short or long 100 deltas, that's when I like to pick up or sell more stock. So at minus 122 deltas, I will sell 100 shares of the stock that I purchased at 72.51 for a profit of almost $100. So I'm only going to sell 100 of those shares. That brings us back to a relatively neutral delta position. So you can see that just fluctuating the price up and down by less than $1, $1.50 in either direction, or $2 at the most, we've been able to generate almost $1,000 in profit on this position in a relatively short period of time. At least I hope it's a relatively short period of time. That's why you really need the stock to move. Now let's take a look at a 15-minute chart of the Russell 2000 index, the one that I've just been demonstrating for you. As you can see, prices hit a low back here. This was last Friday, approximately 1 week ago, of $68.08. As the stock continued to move up, you would be selling stock because your deltas would be getting longer and longer. At $69.43, you're $1.50 from where you were, you would have sold stock. It would have then declined back to $68.50, at which you would have sold that stock in order to become delta neutral. Once again, the stock rallied and you purchased more stock when it got up to $69.46 because you were, at that point, you were selling stock because you were long deltas. For a while, the stock just traded sideways and then started moving up rapidly. Well, since you were only a little bit long delta, you only sold about 100, maybe 200 shares at this point. Once it got up to this point, you'd be quite long delta. You'd have to sell at least another 200 or 300 shares. Now you are short approximately 400 shares. At this point, it traded sideways for quite a while until it had a very large run up here. At this point, you probably would have been extremely long delta, probably 600 delta long, and you would have had to sell 600 shares. Now you are short 1,000 shares of stock at 72. If you are short 1,000 shares of stock at 72, what happens to your straddle position? Well, your straddle position is also probably at a negative position, or at a relatively long delta. At this point, stocks drop off dramatically down to 71. You could at this point sell some of your shares, the 600 that you went short here, for a profit of approximately $1.50. Stock rallied up again, and you sold some additional shares short in order to become delta neutral. At 71.92, you're close to 1,000 shares short of the stock. Then the stock continued to drop dramatically, period after period after period after period after period. And during this downturn, as soon as you became delta negative, you were selling 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, all the way down to the point at which you were delta neutral again at $70. Being short 1,000 shares of stock all the way up, slower at first, maybe 200 or 300 shares until you got to this point, and then about 600 or 700 shares at this point, you would have gotten a full 2 points on those 700 shares short for approximately a $1,400 profit. That's how, and this is a relatively short period of time, this is only 2 days. That's how you generate profits gamma scalping. And that's what we're going to be doing over the next 20 sessions, is determining when, where, how, and why we're going to be buying and selling stock in order to remain delta neutral. All the time that we're buying and selling stock, our straddle position, and remember, this is the reason that this works, is because we have purchased 10 contracts of this straddle on the IWM. Each contract represents 100 shares of stock. Once we get to 1,000 shares, we're going to be 1,000 long delta or 1,000 short delta. In either case, once we get to 1,000 short delta or 1,000 long delta, and we have either 1,000 shares short or 1,000 shares long, we can no longer move. We cannot purchase nor can we buy any more stock, and we have an absolutely flat delta neutral position, which can neither make money nor lose money. Our goal, of course, is to continue to trade the IWM on all the fluctuations that's possible, buying and selling stocks so that we are continually delta neutral. The more times we can trade, the more money we can make. And it's that simple. This is absolutely a brilliant way to day trade without the risk. As we go through the videos, this will be a live trade. We will be doing these trades live out of my account, and you can see exactly what the results are and how to do these yourself and the reasons behind them as we go through the next 20 sessions. So I wish you guys all the best and trade with confidence.